Okay, it's 10:51 on April 8th. Tomorrow morning I leave on this trip. It's a lot, I'm really excited, but it's hard. I mean, it's always hard to face the unknown and leave comfort for discomfort. Yeah, but I'm fitter than I've ever been and younger than I'll ever be, so why not,
When ORBEA reached out last fall and asked if I'd be interested in riding my bike between two stages of the Lifetime Grand Prix, I jumped at the opportunity. Riding from the Sea Otter Classic in Monterey, California to Unbound Gravel in Emporia, Kansas would mean crossing almost 5 states while living on the road for 7 weeks. It felt like the perfect soul-searching trip to embark on in that liminal year after graduating college, a tantalizing mix of a Krakauer novel and something Lachlan Morton might undertake. But as my departure date mercilessly marched closer, I realized I'd have to move out of my place in Santa Barbara and leave my life there behind. A life that spanned 5 years and so many defining firsts for me. It was the only plan I had had after graduating, and now I was leaving that behind too. So I guess I'd move back in with my parents at their house in Berkeley and figure it out later, or on the trip. The trip seemed like a good time to figure it out.
Alright, we're doing it. I have a crazy death wobble right now. God. This is
So it was settled. I would ride between 2 lifetimes. After a couple short days ride from Berkeley to Sea Otter, I spent a couple days meeting sponsors and nodding in agreement at how incredible this trip would be, all while my stomach did continuous somersaults. So much so, in fact, I forgot to film anything there or even a grand departure. My nerves came to an especially painful head as my girlfriend pulled me out of town and we said goodbye as my adventure truly begun.
just said bye to Ruth an hour ago. Ugly cried about it. Gonna try not to ugly cry now. There's not a lot of things I know about my life at this point, but I do know that every day when I wake up, the first person I want to see is Ruth. So that was really hard. And it was really hard to remember why I chose this.
I had lived out on my bike before. In fact, I had even done a trip of similar length and time several years ago. But I had never done something of this magnitude alone, and that was what scared me. As the sun set on my first day and rose and fell again on my second, I was surprised that this trip was feeling relatively mundane. After months of preparation and nodding at others' exclamations, I was indeed starting something special. But the hot sun was no different than any other rides, and the roads were just as busy. As I left the Central Valley behind for the foothills and then the Sierras and eventually the Tahoe Basin, I found strangers willing to take me in, and sections of road I would have never ridden otherwise, even if they weren't always pleasant.
I've been riding this highway all day. That's why it's the first time I'm pulling the camera out, because I don't really want to be running around the highway and trying to get angles. Probably shouldn't swear so much in this. Pretty sick.
After a few shorter days to prepare myself to start across the loneliest road in America, I couldn't procrastinate much longer and turned onto Highway 50. In Nevada, I found beauty and meditation where I expected only to find desolation. There was a rhythm to the road in this inhospitable land. Vast basins stretched the road straight for 20 miles at a time. Every couple hours, there's a small range to climb over before diving again to cross an ancient lake bed. You are a submarine, and the towns spaced a day's ride apart are when you breach for air. In Utah, I started to ride past places I had only ever spent hours in a car to visit before, finding a new appreciation for this adventure, for how far I'd come. Even though it might not have given me more clarity on what I wanted to do following it, or any near-death experiences worthy of dinner party fame, I began to ride each day knowing it might be years or even decades before I would return to some of these roads. As we wove our way through the red rocks and dry washes, the kindness of strangers continued to surprise me. Especially in a land the news never failed to remind me voted opposite what I did and thus would treat me accordingly. But no mention of politics ever accompanied the good conversations I had, or welcoming smiles, or hands outstretched with water. In Colorado, I stayed with familiar faces for a few days as I killed some spare time and rested to cross the last state of my ride. After months of anticipation and planning, hours of training and worrying, I was suddenly staring down my last 10 days of the journey. I had been so nervous about whether or not I would even make it this far that now I was worried I hadn't enjoyed my way here enough. I'd soon leave the Colorado Plateau and the Rocky Mountains behind and wade through the most foreign land of my ride, the Great Plains, a place I only knew through high school history textbooks. At first it was eerie. I had never seen such vast, empty land, but as the rhythm of the pedals tend to do, they made short work of my trepidation and turned it into awe and admiration. But alas, the straight roads and merciless wind made short work of that too, and left me with a serious case of tunnel vision for my final destination. The weather made sure to remind me it was still spring, with rain and strong wind forecasted for the long day's ride that sat between me and Emporia. I was 5 days early, but I had a hotel reservation in town I couldn't move, and I wrestled for hours about what ending the trip in a car would give or take away from the sum total of my experience. Why come all this way just to skip the last day? Just to get a ride into town instead of riding into it. But then again, it's not as if there was an ocean or a border waiting for me. No geological survey marker or physical finish line to this pilgrimage. Just a Midwest town preparing for its biggest weekend of the year. And so my trip ended with my bike in the back of a stranger's car, debating whether the rain and wind would have been that bad to ride in for 8 hours, or if it was even possible to decide that while driving 60 miles an hour. But even if I had ridden, nothing awaited me there other than a cheap hotel room. Few people knew what I was even doing, and they wouldn't arrive for another several days themselves. So that was it. I had ridden between lifetimes. I had no better idea of what my next one might look like, but at least now I knew I could trust myself to go it alone.